actual name was Dominic, but he
my husband.
Yeah, he said we're ready whenever you are. Yes.
Everybody's here and ready to go. I was looking back there and I thought I still had. All right. We're going to call to order the City of Sherwood Planning Commission meeting for January 9th, 2018. Roll call.
Chair Simpson? Did you guys hear that? Chair Simpson?
Here. I don't think they're
Let's see
on.
how many times you're here, huh? How about now?
They're not on. Ours are not on either.
Yeah. Okay. Vice Chair Flores.
Here.
Commissioner Rep.
Here.
Commissioner Kai.
Here.
Commissioner Scott.
Here.
Commissioner Matzinger.
Here.
And Commissioner Reddick is absent.
All right. Would you like us to pause for a moment while you... Can anybody hear us other than my voice that carries a mile and a half?
Can't hear us. Please stand by.
All right, we'll take a momentary standby while we get the audio fixed.
There we go.
There it is.
And it's not just my voice projecting now. All right, we have on the next agenda item is the consent agenda, which consists of the December 12th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review them? Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion or comments? I had 2 Scrivener errors that I had turned in to Kirsten prior to the meeting. Commissioner Kai?
I just wanted to ask, I guess, point of protocol. Since I was absent, would it be best for me to abstain during the approval of the minutes?
Did you have an opportunity to read them?
I looked over them, but since I was absent, I was just curious.
I I'm going to have Julia
Yeah,
answer.
generally my understanding is that you still can vote on them. It's
Oh, okay.
more just you're accepting them. You don't have to witness them necessarily, but it's up to you.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Council liaison announcements. Councilor Garland.
Hi, everybody. On our January 2nd meeting last week at the council, we approved our new liaison assignments for the year. So happy to announce that I will continue to be the Planning Commission liaison for the foreseeable future. I actually petitioned for this. I wanted to be here for these. So, and Councilor Rosner, who joined us in December, is going to be my alternate. So in any instances that I may not be able to attend, Tim will be the council liaison for the city council for these meetings. I don't know if you guys have all met Tim, but he's great. Future announcements, I guess we have a meeting this Thursday, the 11th, for the budget committee. It's just kind of a typical half year, looking at where we are and making the adjustments. We've got that coming up this week. And then on the 17th, and I hope I'm not stealing anybody's thunder on this, is the comprehensive plan update kickoff meeting for, did I steal your, I was afraid of that. So that's coming up, but I'll let Erica talk more to that. That's all I really have. So thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. Staff announcements.
Sure. I have a couple announcements. The first being the Comprehensive Plan Community Advisory Committee kickoff meeting is going to be next Wednesday, January 17th, in this room from 6:30 to 8 p.m. The city, we also received 6 requests for proposals from planning firms to help guide the visioning process for the comp plan update, and we are hoping to have a contract signed by the beginning of March so we can start this process. And I just want to let you know that we have some Planning Commission upcoming meeting dates of January 23rd and February 13th. And also this Thursday, we have a hearings officer meeting for a proposed 24-lot subdivision here in Sherwood.
And Erica, did we mention the state grant that we got? Did we mention it?
I did last
Oh, okay.
last time.
Okay.
But we did receive a state grant for our work on our economic opportunities analysis.
That it?
That's it.
So on the hearings officer, that 24-lot subdivision, can you tell us where that is in the city?
Yes.
I read the
It's
information, but I thought for people.
It's Timber Crossing at Woodhaven number 3, and it is off of Timber Crossing Lane and Sequoia, just off of Meineke.
So 24 houses on just over 3 acres. So they're doing eight units per acre, and so it's too small to come to the planning commission, so the hearings officer does. And if you haven't been to or seen a hearings officer, they don't have it very often, so it's interesting to hear how they do their hearings. So, all right, that's it.
That's it.
All right. Community comments. Community comments are limited to those items not already on the agenda. And I'd also like to take this time to announce that if you would like to speak under community comments or testify during the public hearing, we have blue cards, blue sheets of paper in the back. And if you would fill one of those out and turn it into someone on the staff, that way when we get to the agenda item, we'll be able to call on you. There's also a sign-up sheet in the back of the room if you wish to receive notices regarding other planning commission items or agenda items or what's going on in the planning department. You can sign up in the back of the room on that, and you'll get on an email list for that. I do not see anybody racing to the front of the room to speak under community comments, so we're going to move on to new business. And for new business, we have one item, which is our public hearing. So the public hearing on SP 1702 Cabinet Cures is called to order. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present the staff report. Questions, if any, by the hearing body for staff. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and time will be limited as follows. Applicant will have 30 minutes split between presentation and rebuttal. Persons in favor of the application will have 4 minutes each. Persons opposed to the application will have 4 minutes each. Rebuttal from the applicant is the remainder of their 30 minutes. We will then close the public hearing. No other comments will be heard from the public or the applicant. There'll be final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the commission, and then discussion by the commission. A decision may be made by the Planning Commission at the close of the hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. If the matter is continued to a date certain, this will be the only notice of that date you receive. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of the blue testimony forms and submit it to the Planning Commission Secretary. The chair will recognize people who wish to speak, and any questions should be addressed through the chair. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record. Also, this is being recorded, and when you come up, make sure that the green light on the microphone base is on. If it's not, you need to just press the button for about 2 to 3 seconds. In reaching a decision on the application, the commission must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulations. Those criteria are identified in the staff report. There are 2 copies of the staff report available in the room this evening. The testimony and evidence must address these criteria or other criteria you believe to apply to the decision. Please note, failure to raise an issue with enough detail to enable the commission, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the City Council or Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Also, failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval, again with enough detail to allow the commission to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. At this time, I'd like to ask members of the commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing. I'd like to announce that just prior to the meeting, Eugene Stewart came up to me and asked me about the purpose of the hearing this evening, and I responded to why it had to be held before the Planning Commission rather than a staff decision. It was my understanding that it was a Planning Commission required meeting because it did not meet the bare bones industrial design guidelines and had to come before the Planning Commission as a design review. But I did ask him to refer any further questions to staff because they're way more technically right than I am most of the Anybody else have any ex parte contact? All right. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge any planning commissioner's members' ability to participate? All right. Then seeing none, I don't think this one says it in here in the language, but the Planning Commission will be making the decision tonight, and if there's any appeal, it's appealed to the City Council. So we are the decision-making body for this hearing. All right, staff.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. So before you tonight is the Cabinet Cures Site Plan Review, application file number 1702. The applicant is proposing a new 16,665 square foot building on the southeast corner of Southwest Arrow Street and Southwest Olds Place. This site is approximately 40,000 square feet in size. Just to go over some of the existing site characteristics, the site was platted as Lot 8 of the Sherwood Commercial Center in 2005. The site is vacant and is relatively flat, but has been rough graded through the subdivision process. And there are no significant natural resources on site. There. And it's zoned light industrial. North of Southwest Arrow, there are light industrial uses. The existing Cabinet Cures facility is there, a stone and tile shop, and a pest control company. A new development called Pinnacle Springs was recently constructed, and it is further north of the cul-de-sac. And I'm going to show a picture of that here in a second, and it's home to Weg's Pet Resort. To the south, we have 2 vacant lots, and which eventually abut Tualatin Sherwood Road. And the properties to the east and west are also zoned for light industrial uses. So this slide shows all the review criteria that we went through. I'm not going to read them all. But all review criteria have either been met or can be met as conditioned in the staff report this evening. So the design criteria, and you talked a little bit about this, Jean. So this originally would have been a type 3 review if the applicant met 4 out of the 6 industrial design criteria in our code. The applicant met 2 out of the 6 design criteria and therefore decided to meet the industrial design objectives, which means that we have a planning commission hearing tonight to make sure that all of those objectives can be met. So there are 7 industrial design objectives, but some in this presentation have been combined for being similar and just for the brevity of the presentation tonight. And the 7th objective doesn't apply to the site as there are no natural resources on site or adjacent to the property. The applicant told the story of cabinet cures in the application narrative. The owner developed the old business park to accommodate growth of cabinet cures in 2007 and now has outgrown that facility, which is directly across the street from the proposed site. Cabinet Cures is a custom refacing company of cabinets and doors and services the Portland metro market. The company has also expanded into the do-it-yourself market, selling reface systems to homeowners on the internet nationwide. And this business is growing, and so is their need to expand into a larger facility. So all components are custom finished in their Sherwood facility using water-based finishes that have been formulated by the owner and are shipped all across the country. So one of the economic goals of the city is to support existing businesses that provide family wage jobs. Cabinet Cures employs 19 people earning above minimum wage, and the company plans on hiring additional employees with this new facility that they're proposing. Cabinet Cures often hires people with no experience in finishing trades and teaches and trains them for this type of work. The proposed building will complement the other buildings directly across the street and also the new buildings within the Sherwood Commercial Center area. So down below here on the left-hand side of this slide is the new building, Dependable Springs, which is located on the west side of the cul-de-sac off of Olds Place. So as described in the staff report, the project uses window glazing, building materials such as pre-finished beige metal siding, stone wainscot that wraps around the building, awnings above the entrances, and 2 glass overhead doors. And all of this combined really breaks up the bulk appearance of the building, as we can see on the preliminary north elevation. In the front of the building, the north elevation, the building is actually broken into 2 faces. The easterly side of the building with the 2 glass overhead doors is offset from the building, which really breaks up that expanse of having a building that's completely straight planed across the front. The colors of the building are proposed to match the buildings directly across the street with burgundy trim and beige siding. Also, a short landscaped wall is proposed on the easterly side of the site's frontage, which provides additional vertical articulation. And the parking is screened with vegetation that wraps around Olds Place on the southwest arrow with low-lying shrubs and trees. So access to the site comes from Olds Place and one from southwest arrow via 2 driveways. The site has been designed to meet truck access and loading requirements. Staff has conditioned the applicant, The site includes 29 on-street parking spaces, 2 of which are actually on Olds Place and meet the minimum parking space requirements. Staff has conditioned the applicant to revise the site plan to show 9 wheel stops and to lengthen the parking striping along the northeast parking area, which is right here, because these 9 parking spaces actually abut that landscaping wall. The applicant has met bicycle parking requirements as for our proposed inside the building and will be checked prior to final occupancy. There's an existing 5-foot sidewalk that wraps around the site. And staff has also conditioned the applicant to install a hardscape path from the west entrance to the sidewalk. So that is where the path will be. All other site development standards required by the zoning district, such as lot width, setbacks, and height, have all been met. So the site fronts Southwest Arrow Street, which is designated as the local collector, which has a visual corridor standard. The applicant has a minimum of the 10-foot landscaped buffer requirement. That's the standard. The applicant is looking to plant David's maples, which will be planted along the frontage to match the trees that are directly across the street. The code standard for landscaping screening of a parking area is a minimum of 10 feet, but it can be reduced up to 5 feet if the neighboring property has a 5-foot vegetative buffer. So the applicant is proposing the minimum 5-foot buffer just to the south of the trash facility, which is located on the eastern border of the eastern property line border. And as such, to the north of the trash facility, that buffer is actually increased. The applicant has proposed to increase that buffer to 15 feet to really screen that trash facility from Southwest Arrow Street. Now, we received some comments from Pride Disposal about that trash facility, and they have asked the applicant to revise the site plan because now where that bin is located, it's not meeting their specifications, design standards, I think, for opening. So in your staff report, we have conditioned the applicant to come back with a revised site plan that not only meets the city's landscaping requirement, but actually meets the needs of Pride Disposal's requirements as well. So here is the preliminary utility and drainage plan for the site. The City of Sherwood engineering staff has reviewed these plans, and all public utilities such as sewer, water, and storm were all installed as part of the subdivision process. And there wasn't really anything that stood out to the engineering staff as being significant. And as conditioned in the staff report, the applicant can meet all requirements for water, sewer, and storm water requirements. So with that, no public comments were received, but we did receive last Friday a comment from Clean Water Services, which will become Exhibit E to the staff report, and it corresponds to approval E1 in your staff report, asking for a stormwater authorization permit from the applicant. So staff recommendations tonight is to approve the cabinet cure site plan, subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report dated January 9th, 2018. And with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And the applicant is also here this evening.
All right. So does anybody have any questions of staff before we call the applicant up for his? All right. I have no blue. There's a second one next to you. And I'm going to guess Dan and Kelly.
I'm Kelly.
I'm Dan.
Hi.
Hi.
And I could try to pronounce your last name, but I'm going to Cook. And Simons? Simmons. Yeah. I would have pronounced them both wrong, so Kelly at least gave me a shot at getting it right. All right.
So first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and planning to kind of get this towards an approval. I did have on the conditions to make sure that we're on the same page. So, if I can turn your attention to page B5 is the same one. Not that the duplication's an issue, it just wanted to make sure everybody understood that egress door on the left side of the building wasn't really intended for public access. And so I wanted to kind of question that condition for making a sidewalk connection to Olds. It's primarily egress or for somebody go out for a lunch break or go out for a smoke or something like that during a break time. So we're not trying to invite the people, the public, into the building through that west entrance. And so I just wanted to make sure that the condition, as stated, is consistent with what we're trying to accomplish. We're really not looking for it's more of an egress stoop that's out there, egress door than a public entrance.
Okay. It certainly reads like a duplication, doesn't it?
Yeah, but then we can just strike one. That's
Yeah.
no problem. And I think we got the same thing going on with 6 and 9. Condition 7.
6 and 9. Let's see. Cycling, yeah.
So condition 7, and I don't think we have a problem with meeting pride disposal requirements on 6 or 9. Condition 7 was asking for additional information on the proposed landscape plan for plant spacing, irrigation, and whatnot. And we did provide professionally designed landscape plan and irrigation that identifies the number of each species that's on the plan, and they are actually drawn to scale so that the space that each plant occupies is relative to all plants around it. So, and then there's an irrigation plan that does the same thing with sprinkler heads. So I just didn't know on that condition how we might improve upon what we've already submitted, because when I see a condition like this, it's like a trigger that I need to do something, but sometimes there's boilerplate language in conditions that create confusion. So I just wanted to make sure that if there's something lacking on the landscape plan, that we have the opportunity to fix that. Otherwise, I think the plan as submitted satisfies the intent of the condition.
So that is a good question, because you're referring to your landscape plan L1.
Yes.
And so based on your submittal, you believe that meets all the requirements and potentially is the boilerplate. So I'm going to turn to staff and say, is it potentially, did he complete, it looked like he complied with all the landscaping.
Right, so he complied with all the landscaping submittals for the application. I do know that engineering has some additional standards for such as root barriers and whatnot, and we just want to make sure that those standards are met at the time of building permit.
Provide additional information on the proposed planting, spacing, irrigation, maintenance of the plants. To ensure that the
So we
construction.
can provide the applicant with those standards
Okay.
Okay, well,
from engineering.
my understanding was, and this sort of relates to another condition, that the street trees weren't going to be desired along Olds because of the fiber optic. Not recalling the discussion with engineering in the pre-app clearly, but H7 also says provide the installation of the broadband is already in place. So either I missed something or this is a duplicate condition that has already been satisfied. So I'm looking for clarification on that as well.
Clarification on H7 that you believe the broadband utilities are already in place. So it's
On Olds and not required on Arrow.
okay.
Right. And that would show up on drawing C3. the landscaping is just a coordinated tree species along the front, incompatible with the street tree standard, that's pretty simple swap out. Yeah, no problem.
So are you comfortable with the language as submitted, or would you like on B7 propose different language regarding the irrigation and maintenance?
Well, it says prior to final site plan review, and I think we met the intent here with the plan submitted, so I think you've got another hook prior to building permit issuance, and that might be you might have it caught there already with that condition.
Let's see here.
So, I guess as I'm looking through it, my thought is as well as what specifically was missing that they need to add. Because I'm reading through this recommended condition and it says, provide additional information about spacing, irrigation, and maintenance. Was none of that provided? Was some of it provided? What specifically is missing?
Sounds like maybe coordination on the street tree species. And then as we get into construction documents, we would specify the layer of topsoil, that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
And that detail we didn't get to here, but so if that's the intent of the comment,
That's the
we're
intent.
totally fine with it. I just don't want that condition to be misconstrued that we totally missed something and something's got to change drastically because.
Okay, so you're comfortable with the condition with the understanding from this public testimony and from the staff's rebuttal that they're not going to introduce something new at the time the site plan's reviewed, that they're just going to be doing the details that you just mentioned?
Yeah.
Okay, as long as you're comfortable with that, because my question's going to be, now that we've revised them, do you agree with the conditions as revised? So,
And if I may, I would recommend, based on this conversation, that we might consider a revision to that finding related to B7. So it says, it talks a little bit about the why it's not met so that it's more clear, hopefully.
and we can do that as, yeah, thank you for that suggestion. We'll get staff to do that while we could do that. I've tried to craft language on the fly, and it usually makes staff scared because I'm a.
Not a problem.
So
We got to live by the words. We got to die by the words. I just want to make sure we have a common understanding of the words. So.
yes, and I appreciate that and respect the fact that you actually read the detail and came to us prepared to ask questions specific to what we are supposed to be looking at tonight. So.
Well, I think that's all we have. I think about construction project which I'm involved with, and then the operation which he's obviously involved with, and I'm not after the fact. So.
Well, I read the development proposal language and Kelly, I'm presuming that you provided the narrative about the operation, and I read that and I thought, wow, that is really cool. There are a lot of businesses in the city of Sherwood that go about their day-to-day operations that the rest of this community has no idea what they do. And when you run into something like this, it makes me want to go, why can't we just have a scrapbook someplace where everybody who has done something, because I wish we could do an advertising plug for you to say, look at what this company does in little Sherwood, Oregon, and what that,
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We actually, when I built the Olds Business Park, it's 13 separate units, and I built it as 1,880 square foot units, and we moved into it in 2008. I had one unit.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we needed was one unit, and we now have about 14,000 square feet of the complex, which is why we need to build a new building. We've grown a lot in Sherwood, so
Right.
it's been great.
That's terribly exciting from my perspective. So now we need to know how did we do it right that got you in here to grow so well? And
Great community. Sherwood is a great community. My son goes to school here, and it's just, it's been great. We hire locally almost exclusively. And like I said in the narrative, I I mainly hire young guys, and we train them. Guys that, didn't go to college, didn't have the opportunity, and we hire them and we train them, and they become national trainers for our places all over the country. So it's pretty cool. It's a good business.
It is very cool. It's very cool. It's like, can you get hooked in with the high school to get internship programs or something? I don't know. I'm just thinking of exciting opportunities in the city of Sherwood. This is one of them, which is not what we're here for tonight, but I do want to
Make that a
take.
condition.
Yeah. No, but I want to recognize that you took the time to not only just submit an application, but to give us enough histories for us to be able to make an informed decision. Because as a design review criteria, we have to weigh in that this is a benefit to the community, and everything within your narrative shares why it is an important asset in the community of Sherwood. So thank you. Does anybody have any other questions of the applicant before we're going to ask for opponents or proponents to come forth, and then you'll be able to come back for rebuttal, and then and during that time, hopefully, Erica's crafting some language to add to wordsmithing a couple things quickly on those
Thank you.
conditions. Thank you. Thank you again. All right. I currently do not have any other blue cards. Is there anybody else that wishes to test as a proponent? Anybody that wishes to testify as an opponent or testify in a neutral position? We have an opportunity for rebuttal, and I'm actually, Erica, do you want to take a 2-minute recess while you craft a couple language, or are you ready to go?
No, I'm ready to go, actually.
Okay.
So what I'm proposing that you strike, let's see, I have to go back here. Condition B7.
Completely?
Completely. And then on page 41, when it talks about street trees, page 41, I'm recommending the following condition of approval. So prior to site plan approval, the applicant shall submit a revised landscaping plan showing construction details that meet the City of Sherwood's engineering standards for street trees. Final site plan.
And that would be B. So you're
So I would replace
replace B7 with.
correct.
So you're going to add language to the staff's narrative on page 41 at the bottom of the finding.
At the bottom of the finding, that is.
So you're going to modify the finding and add a condition of approval that states.
Prior to site plan approval, the applicant shall submit a revised landscaping plan showing construction details that meet the City of Sherwood's engineering standards for street tree planting.
All right. And we'll call the applicant up for confirmation that he accepts these in a moment. And then also we're striking number 5 as a duplicate and B6 as a duplicate. And on H7 regarding the broadband utilities, I understand the applicant's concern that if they're already existing in the one street, do they need to be added to both street frontages? And I don't know if that is. I don't.
So I'm going to chime in here.
Oh, good, because we don't have.
Well, and I don't know for certain, but my guess is that that's more of a standard condition.
Boilerplate thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm pretty certain that when the subdivision went in, we got the things that we wanted to get, but I'm not 100% positive.
So, as with water, sewer, septic, storm laterals, these are all boilerplate things that are put out there that the engineering department has to check off. So we leave the condition in with the understanding that we don't know that there's a deficiency, but we have to have the engineering department check off.
Yeah, and maybe what I would recommend in this particular instance, because it does say that you need to install it per the requirements, maybe have an out that says unless otherwise determined by the city engineer or something like that, so that it gives him the ability to check. But if we did really need it for some reason, that I'm not aware at all. But that just might give us that ability to check in. And
Right, I appreciate that, yeah. So you're wordsmithing unless deemed unnecessary or already existing by the city engineer in H7.
Correct. So it could be read as prior to final occupancy for any building, Sherwood broadband utilities shall be installed unless otherwise
Existing or deemed unnecessary.
correct per the city engineer along the subject property's frontage.
All right.
Got it.
All right. So, under rebuttal, since we have not closed it, I'll have the applicant come up and acknowledge the changes that we've made on the conditions. So again, we're going to strike condition 5, condition 6. We've wordsmithed condition B7 and BH in response to your testimony. Do you find our changes?
The last one you said you changed?
H7, the broadband utilities.
Okay, and on the broadband, my understanding was that our discussion with Craig at the pre-app was he came to a conclusion then that they were good on fiber optics, so that's why I bring it up now.
Right, and so the language is going to say, prior to final occupancy, Sherwood broadband utilities, vaults and conduits shall be installed or deemed, unless,
Otherwise deemed unnecessary.
or, yes.
We're okay with that language as long as Craig hasn't changed the story.
Craig's not here. So we're gonna put it out so that your concerns are addressed, but the city engineer still has an opportunity to comply with the code.
Okay, and then on the landscape issue, just because every time you hire a landscape architect to revise a plan, it takes time and money. I was curious if we could change the timing on that from prior to site plan approval, because it really is a construction detail to just do it prior to building permit.
We can do that. We can change it to prior to building permit. That's fine.
It says prior to site plan approval. Is that what it's going to say?
Prior to building permit approval.
Prior to
Just the housekeeping thing that helps everybody.
Right, prior to building permit.
so it'll be
And that's fine from the staff's perspective.
so it would be.
so it's going to be
it would
moved
F.
from B7 to F4 then. Got it. All right, before I close the public hearing, do you have any other rebuttal comments, questions? And so the conditions approvals as revised are acceptable? All right. Thank you, and thank you for your time. All right, so I'm going to officially close the public testimony. And does the staff have anything that they, staff had any final comments?
Not.
All right, are there any questions of staff before we get a motion? All right. Excellent. I don't have any further questions either.
All right. Well, I move the Sherwood Planning Commission approve the application for SP 17-02 cabinet cures based on the applicant's testimony, public testimony received, and the analysis, findings, and conditions in the staff report with the modifications stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It has been moved and seconded that we approve SP 17-02 cabinet cure site plan with the conditions as revised. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All next we have Planning Commissioner announcements. The only thing I had to announce was, and I don't have the date with me, there is a community preparedness meeting, I think it's January 25th, that is being put on at the police station. And, you know, I blunder my way into different announcements and meeting things, and they had it last year, or a couple years ago, and it's an opportunity for people to go in and the emergency preparedness team from the city of Sherwood, the police department, they have ham radio operators and other people there to stop and think about your family's plans. So we have another meeting before then, but I think it's a good opportunity for people to hear and know the things that you're supposed to be doing and get a checklist to check off. So anyway, that was my only announcement, that I saw that, and I was hoping people could attend and get it more information. All right.
Well, I'd like to mention again that in 10 nights, we're doing opening night for The Odd Couple at the Sherwood Arts Center. The tickets are already on sale online at sherwoodarts.org. There are two versions, a male version and a female version, that will be alternating over the 6-performance run. So come support the arts in Sherwood.
Excellent. Any other announcements? All right. If there's no objection, we will adjourn the meeting early at 7:44.
What?